Good morning, everybody. Hey, how are you all doing? I think I am live. Let me see. Let me jump over here on Facebook. If you're joining me, say hi. Let me know how your morning's going so that I know that I am all good to go. Just give me one little moment so I can make sure that I'm in the right spot. I'm pressing record so that everybody who's not here today on live can go through and watch the replay as well. So give me a comment in the chat box on Facebook. What's been your biggest aha moment up until now? We are up to day 4 already. That's incredible. So we've got today's session, we've got one more to go tomorrow, and we are nearly there. So let me just quickly make sure we are all good. I don't want to, where are we? Just give me one little minute. Here we go. There we go. It says I'm live, so I'm hoping that we're all good, even though I can't see it. There we go. I can see it here. So welcome. I know that a lot of you aren't watching live as you're at work or you're homeschooling or you're doing your thing. That's completely okay. That's why I am posting the replays not only up on Facebook, but also on the All Access page as well, which you have a link to just so that you've got everything in a nice, neat order so that you can go through and watch those and catch up with any of those videos. So we've got Tara here. Hey, Tara, how's it going? Great to have you on live. So now that I know that I'm streaming, I'm recording, so I can keep a copy of this and pop it up on the page later. What I really want to go through today is obviously day 1, we covered a lot around your current reality, your desired reality, and looking at what your goals are and the gap in between, okay? And a lot of the times the gap in between comes from some of those beliefs that we hold, right? So that's why we dived into self-sabotage and overwhelm and things like that. Some of those blocks that can keep us stuck. That was in day 2. Day 3, obviously nutrition, which is like the thing that I absolutely love to talk about, only purely because I just get that that's where so much of our results come from, but also too because I love food, right? And I really do believe that in order to be successful long-term, we do have to have that link between being effective and enjoyable and bringing that together. So if you are watching live or if you are watching on the replay, let me know what really resonated with you yesterday on that was. I know, oh, hey, Alicia, how are you? I think a lot of you have said that, like, it's really great to understand and to know that you can have both, right? It doesn't have to be either or. So I think that just knowing that and kind of being able to realize that, yes, that is possible can be really, what would the word be, freeing, right? And empowering to know that you can still get to your goal in a way that you're actually going to really like and enjoy. So today we're actually going to learn about training, working out, exercising, whatever you want to call it, right? And the most effective way that you can do that that's going to allow you to reach your goal, okay? So insert goal here, whether that's lose weight, lose body fat, build muscle, get lean, whatever it is, right? So, and I think I spoke about this on day 1, talking about my journey, right? When I started in the gym, not really knowing what I was doing, kind of just following blindly what, everyone else was sort of saying to do, and just thinking like more was better, right? Because we have these two things. Often we think we need to train more and burn more calories and eat less food and eat less calories, right? So we kind of have that whole idea or belief in our head that we have to do more exercise, less food, and that's the way that we reach our goals, okay? So for me, a lot of that was, spending all that time in the gym, 6 or 7 days a week. And, a lot of the times, when I was doing my competing, it was twice a day in the gym, right? So it was very time consuming. It was very stressful on my body, right? Because when you're not fueling your body with good nutrition and you don't have that really sweet spot between, a calorie deficit and also fueling your body. But obviously too, when you're putting so much stress on the body from overtraining, nothing was really changing. And it was actually really hard to get to where I wanted to be. So it wasn't, I guess, until I, did my personal training course. I am a nutritionist and a personal trainer. So I've kind of gone through, the start when it was like I had no clue, right? And then you go through and you obviously do the training and you work with clients, you get the experience. And then it's like, okay, now I can see why, that wasn't the best way. That wasn't the most effective way and not, the smartest way. And that's really why I wasn't getting the results, right? So yeah, it was like, I was going to the gym, I was doing all this stuff, but it was really hard. And, again, not a lot was changing for the effort that I was actually putting in. Like, it's like I'm putting all this effort in, but not much is, coming back in the terms or results. Hey, Abby, great to have you here too. So it's great to see so many of you live. That's really great. I just caught a glimpse of my hair in the mirror. I've actually washed my hair today. So it's like, right, winning. That's like ticked off the list. I don't know what it is, but I just have this thing about washing my hair. It just seems to take so much time. But anyway, all good. All right. So what we're going to do today is talk about the 5 vital ingredients that you need with your training, and some of the mistakes that ladies do make when it does come to their exercise or their training. Okay. And sometimes why, when you put so much effort in, but you're not actually getting the physical changes that you would like to see. So it's really about having like a big picture look at why that is the case. And because we really want to, when we are putting effort in and doing, these things, we're going to the gym, we're doing all this stuff, right? Like, yes, our nutrition has to be on point, which is what we spoke about yesterday, but you want to be able to train in a way that is, again, also probably those 2 circles, right? Like, it's effective, but over here too, it's also, it's time effective as well, because we're all, most of us are mums, most of us are busy working and stuff, right? So it's like, again, meshing those 2. So, but also you want to see that, before and after picture as well and see results, right? So that's really what I'm going to talk about, is how I took, what I was doing previously, not really knowing, and really just applied these 5 principles or these 5 ingredients into my programming and into, my clients' programming now that I work with them. And to really just help them to be really, really effective. So in effect, we're like reconditioning, I guess, the body and what we believe we have to do in order to achieve our goal body, right? So let me start by sharing my screen. And if you are watching the replay, then I'd love for you just to keep typing in the chat box, even as you're watching the replay, even if you're not live, just so that I can really get a good idea of, what's hitting home for you, what maybe is really, really resonating as well. All right, so let me quickly open this up and share my screen. I'm just so excited that you ladies are all here showing up. Like, it's day 4 and you're still here, you're still committed, you're still going strong. So I just want to really, really celebrate you, right? Because like I said yesterday, like, celebrating that sort of thing is so, so important. So let me know quickly if you can see the screen. I'm hoping, again, today my internet's going to be playing the game, which yesterday it seemed to be fine. So just give me a thumbs up or a yes if you can see that before I go into going through what I'm going to talk about today. So who's excited about this session, by the way? Like, who is someone who really enjoys training, but perhaps maybe thinks that it's not quite effective? Or who is someone that kind of struggles to enjoy training, right? And you don't really know where to start. Cool. No, that's totally fine, Tara. If you have to go soon, just watch the rest when you can. That's why I've got the replay. So stay as long as you like or as little as you can. That's completely fine. But it is nice having you all here live, or some of you live, because at least I get to like interact. I'm not just kind of talking to myself, which is still fine. Like, if you watch the replay later, but it is nice when I can just be like, can you see my screen? Can you hear me? And get that feedback. So that's cool. Awesome. All right. So day number 4, let's get into it. So question I want to ask first, though, is how, when you start thinking about your current workouts, what that looks like for you. For some of you, you might be working out. For some of you, you may not be doing anything, and that's completely okay. Think about, perhaps now, or think about maybe in the past what you've done, and just really ask yourself, like, how much time, money, energy, like, do you currently spend, right? Like, in terms of time, how many times are you going to the gym? How many times are you training in a day? How long is it taking? Money, like, are you investing like money in the gym or personal trainer or classes or whatever it might be? And energy as well, like, what is that energy output, right? So like I said, yeah, some of you might not be doing anything at all, okay? And that's completely okay. That's still, a quantity there. You can say 0 time, 0 money, 0 energy. That's perfectly fine. So, but I guess for most of you here, you probably are on some level, or have been on some level, like training or working out, or, doing exercise in some sort of capacity. So I really just want you to perhaps think about that. And that was today's challenge that I just got you to go through, which was sent out this morning, was just to have a think about, like, what are those things that you have done in the past, and have a think about the results that you've gotten as well. but then also some of those beliefs, right, that you can carry around, you know, whether it's like you have to do lots of cardio to lose weight, or you have to, lift really heavy weights, or if you lift really heavy weights, you're going to get bulky, right, or whatever it might be. So really just starting to have a little bit of a look at those deeper beliefs. Awesome. Yeah, and that's fine. Like some of you might struggle with training, don't enjoy the training. Yeah, cool. And Alicia, I'm enjoying it more, but I want to know more for sure. Perfect. And this is great because I always love, like, I think when you can understand why you're doing something and the reasoning behind it, it can make it a lot easier to actually put that into practice and go, okay, yeah, that kind of clicks because this is why I'm doing that, right? So I think that really helps as well. So that's good, Alicia. So I really just want you to understand that, it's like a lot of us are here because we want to create that physique change, right? So if we want to create that change in our body, create that body composition difference, like, put those before and after photos together and actually see a visible difference, is really just about, making that training or that working out that you're doing a priority. Okay, so I guess the ingredients that we're talking about here, right, is, if you think about, and I explained this a little while ago to some of our clients, was like if you're making a cake, right? So if you've got a cake recipe and you've got all these different ingredients, right, there's ingredients that kind of matter a little bit more and others not so much. So like if you're cooking a cake and, you forget to put the vanilla in, which I have done before, or I forget to buy it and I don't put it in, like it's not going to make a huge difference to the way that the cake, turns out, right? But if you forget to put the flour in or the milk into the cake, you're not going to have a very successful creation, right? So this is kind of a little bit like this, right? So this is why I'm sort of looking at this in terms of, ingredients, right? Because, some of these are, vital ingredients. And I really want you to understand that these things are some of the most vital ingredients that you're going to put in your recipe of, training, right? Because it really is, when we think of it, like it is a big deal, right? Like if we're going to be taking, 3, 4, 5 hours, whatever it might be for you, out of your week into your training, like that's a pretty big effort that you're putting in, right? So we want to make sure that, if you're cooking the cake and you forget you've put all the effort in, you forget the flour, you're going to be pretty disappointed if it comes out of the oven and it's like a complete flop. You're like, well, why don't I even do that? So this is really what I want to just have you sort of understand, that these key ingredients with your exercise, with your training, is really what we need to look at. So does that kind of make sense to everybody? Let me know if you're with me on that, and let me know if you're excited to go through and see what these actually are, to see if you are doing the most effective thing that you could be doing in terms of putting all the time and energy into your training. And I'm not going to have iced coffee today, so just mind me while I'm sipping on my coffee. All right, so the first ingredient. Now, this is a big one, right? So focusing on training rather than working out. Okay, cool. So what I really want to let you know is that, when we look at training and working out, there's a really big difference, okay? Because, a workout is kind of designed or aimed to just like move your body, right? Versus, building strength, or versus like losing, body fat, or, building that sort of lean muscle, right? So just picking any kind of like random workout and considering, what your goal is kind of like, crossing your fingers and hoping that, you get to where you want to be, right? So it's like looking at what is your goal, so if your goal is fat loss and body composition change, you want to be training, for a certain goal, rather than working out and just doing random stuff just for the sake of like moving your body. Okay. But number one, I just want you to understand that, training and working out are completely different things. Okay. So what do I mean by that? And not to say that, moving your body isn't, is bad, like definitely not saying that, but I really want you to just understand what I mean by this, so you can see how this kind of comes into play. So if you're working out, basically if your goal is to have fun, sweat, enjoy moving your body, being active with your kids, like again, nothing wrong with that. Working out is going to do the job. Okay. So that might be just, going for, a run, or going for, kicking the ball around with your kids, right? So that's the goal. Like you're just having fun, you're getting a little bit sweaty, you might be burning some calories, like that's completely cool, right? Again, not to say that there's anything wrong with that. But if you want a change in your body, right, so you want a specific goal, you want to either lose body fat, you want to tone up, you want to, strengthen your body, you want to look lean and, like you've got this really nice, strong physique, that's going to happen when you train. Okay, so it's not just picking random exercises or just doing sort of random workouts, or maybe like going to picking like a random workout on YouTube or something like that, right? So it's like, if you want to create that specific goal, then you're going to have to actually train your body. Okay, so who kind of gets that? Like, who really understands, I guess, the difference between the two? Okay, so again, I'm not saying that working out is not you shouldn't be doing that. I'm absolutely not saying at all. I just really want to make clear the difference, okay? Because one is aligned with, just like having a bit of fun, sweating, might be like going for a walk with your friend or taking the kids for a bike ride, like that's completely cool. But training is aligned with a specific goal, okay? So if you want something to happen because of your workouts, if you want to create that fat loss, you can't just kind of do that by just doing random stuff. Or you possibly could see some results, but it's not going to be as effective, right? Because I'm all about what's going to be the most effective and less time consuming. Okay, it's got to be strategic and it's got to be intentional. Okay, so it's like training has an intention behind it, right? It's like I'm doing this with the intention of this. There's a strategy in place. Whereas like working out is like, you're going to like say fitness classes, you might be doing like, Les Mills classes or body pump or whatever it is. There's no like, yes, that's great. Like I'm not knocking that at all, but there's not really much intention in that. And I'll kind of get into this, as we go through the other steps, and you'll kind of see why. So who's with me so far? Yeah, makes sense. Perfect. Cool. Awesome. Very good. All right. So again, what is your goal? Okay. So we've obviously gone through this like in day one. We've looked really specifically at what that goal is. So just again, if you had that magic wand and you were like, what do I actually want? If I were to wave that wand, what is that ideal body? Okay. So it's like starting with the end in mind. Okay. And this is why we sort of make this progression from day one and looking at that. So that we can sort of get to this point and go, right, okay, my ideal body looks like this, and everyone again is going to have those different goals, right? So everyone's idea of, this is how I want to look, is going to be different and unique to them rather than, what the other person, might be thinking as well. Okay. And so it's really important to get clear on your goal, which is what we've done, what that looks like for you. And, if you could sort of have any transformation that you wanted, what would that be? So it's like, okay, looking at what's possible. And then it's just allowing yourself to be like, right, okay. And obviously, like, again, if you're here, probably the most common response is going to be either some combination of, losing fat, right? And gaining muscle. Okay, so, and obviously gaining muscle doesn't mean like, you're going to look like a bodybuilder gaining muscle, but it's like that nice, lean, toned, muscular look, and not to say that your like muscles are rippling or whatever out of your shirt, but we get that building muscle is so beneficial to your body metabolically, right? So it helps you to burn calories, it helps your body to effectively just be able to stay lean without effectively doing as much work, right? Because it takes more energy for your body to maintain muscle tissue than what it does to maintain fat tissue, right? So it's like your body has to work a lot harder to maintain that. So just naturally at rest, your body is burning more calories. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Cool. All right. So in order to reach those goals, okay, so the goal of like some combination of losing fat or gaining muscle, could be just losing fat, that's completely okay, gaining muscle, there are some tools that we can apply. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a minute just to have a little bit of a look at this. Okay, so these are what we're going to go through today, and it's kind of the reason why I like to do nutrition first on day 3, so that you can kind of see how that kind of comes into play with when we're doing the training as well. So with the tools, right? So we've got various tools that we can pull out of our toolbox that we can apply when it comes to that goal, losing fat, building muscle, gaining muscle, getting lean, whatever it is, right? Or performance goals, right? Whether that's, I want to do a powerlifting competition, or I want to do, some sort of like performance goal, like I'm going to, do some sort of like triathlon or, whatever it might be, right? Not to say that it has to be just specifically for, just the body composition either. Okay. So again, we talked a lot about nutrition yesterday, so I'm not going to like go right over it there. But, if you're talking about like gaining muscle, your nutrition, has to be, when I say higher, I mean higher than like your maintenance calorie level. So the calorie levels that you need to eat to maintain your current weight. Okay. So if you're wanting to gain muscle, obviously your calories have to be a little bit higher. And again, there's a sweet spot there, right? To make sure that obviously you're not putting on heaps of body fat, right? You're not just going to go crazy and be like, the bro science, I'm just going to go on a bulk, right? And just like eat all the food. Like it doesn't happen like that. Whereas if you want to lose fat, like we spoke about yesterday, or weight, you've got to be in that calorie deficit. Okay. So that's the first tool that we have that we can apply. Okay. And cardio, it's kind of like the same thing, except it's backwards, right? So if you're looking to, optimize losing fat, there might be a little bit more cardio in your programming, right? But if it's like you want to gain muscle, then probably less cardio, right? So again, it's that real sweet spot, okay? And when I say doing cardio, I don't mean like, doing it every single day and, doing crazy amounts, right? It's not about that as well. But cardio, just know that it's like another tool, right? So then obviously we've got those two main tools, nutrition, cardio, and then weights, okay? And for women in general, like, we want to sometimes go, oh, weightlifting is for guys, I'm going to get bulky, I don't want to go into the gym, it's scary, whatever it is, right? So a lot of people have this kind of idea that, they've got all these, I guess, preconceived ideas or notions or beliefs around weight training. But if you're looking to lose fat or gain muscle, you should be having weight training in your programming. 100%, like women, it is so beneficial, obviously not for body composition, like looking good, losing fat, gaining muscle, but it's so good for, bone density, so good for health. It's like, as we get older, to stay strong. It's just such a great way to be able to do all of those things in one. But I think sometimes we can get this idea of like women shouldn't be doing weights. And I really, truly believe that we all should be doing some sort of like weight training, strength training. And I don't mean like, deadlifting, 100 kilos, right? That's not what I mean. Okay. But that should always be a constant, no matter what your goal is. Okay. So just give me a comment or a thumbs up in the chat box if that kind of makes sense to you, and you can kind of see that relationship between nutrition, cardio, and weights when it comes to the tools that we can apply. Okay. Hopefully everyone's still with me. And if you're watching the replay, again, just pop a comment in the chat box as you're going through as well, yeah? Because I love seeing everyone interacting, and make sure that I'm not confusing anyone or everyone's kind of picking up what I'm putting down, right? And it gives me a minute to have a little sip of my coffee as well. All right, so ingredient number one is basically, focusing on training rather than working out, okay? So, cool, beautiful, awesome. Thanks, Abby. All right, so ingredient number two, progressive overload. Okay, so has anyone ever heard of this term, progressive overload? Let me know in the chat box. Yes, no, if you have, great. If you haven't, that's completely cool. I'm going to go through and explain to you what that is. So now hopefully you can see that weight training, is beneficial, and, most women or all women should be doing that in terms of, this is my goal, I want to reach it, this is how I get there, right? Okay, so nutrition, cardio, maybe, weights, definitely. Okay, cool. No worries at all, Abby. That's perfect. So I'm going to go through and explain that to you now. So ingredient number two, very, very important, is implementing progressive overload. Okay, so just to restate that, like women should be weight training, like whatever the goal is, okay? They need to be lifting weights. If you want to lose body fat, if you want to get stronger, if you want to get toned, lean, whatever that is, right? It's like there has to be some form of weight training, okay? And sometimes we can look at, a program and be like, oh, I need to be lifting weights, and they go and, they have this program that might be like, oh, I'm just going to, go and do like a Les Mills class. I'm going to go do body pump. That's got weights in it. So it must be like, what I should be doing, right? Or they'll go into the gym which again, I'm not knocking any of this. Like I know and totally get that. And even just doing any of this is like fantastic. But again, it's not about saying this is wrong and you shouldn't be doing it. It's about saying there's better ways that you can make use and more effective use of your time. Okay. So if you are currently doing this, like, don't by any means say, think that I'm saying like that's, you shouldn't be doing that. Like I get that, that's you're doing something right, and that's better than nothing. But I think sometimes we can fall into this trap of going, okay, well that's, I'm doing weights. And then you can get frustrated going, well, why isn't anything changing, right? So just because a workout has like a dumbbell in it or barbells in it, it doesn't mean that it's actually optimized for building muscle and for losing fat and for actually reaching your goal. And it's what a lot of programs are actually missing, okay, is this ingredient, which is progressive overload, okay? So what is progressive overload? So basically, progressive overload is basically the understanding that our body responds to stress, okay? So it just means that, and I'm not going to go right into it again, like with the nutrition, like, you can go right into the science of it. But when our body is stressed, it creates an adaptation, okay, based off the stress that's applied, right? So think of like lifting weights as like putting stress on your body, okay? So when our body is stressed, it creates that adaptation, right? It kind of gets used to or it adapts to the stress that's applied. So what we have to do is in order to create that adaptation over time, we slowly have to increase the stress over time, right? So, and this is what I see so often, right? So a lot of ladies don't increase that stress over time and they don't have that adaptation, because what they'll do is, they'll go into the gym. And I see this all the time, like, especially when I was doing a lot of personal training in the gym, ladies that had probably trained in the gym for, a couple of years, and their bodies hadn't looked like they'd changed, at all, right? So like, yes, there's the benefit of, fit and healthy and that's obviously benefiting them. But obviously too, like, you want to see that result, right? So, so what they do is they kind of stick to like that comfort zone again of going like, I'm just going to, pick this weight, whether it's like 5 kilos, for example, and I'm going to do this many reps, 8 to 12 reps. And that's just going to be my program. And I just don't have that stress or that, that adaptation and taking that into account to obviously allow the muscle to continue to have that adaptation, right? So it's about really, changing up the weights that you're lifting, changing up the repetition ranges that you're doing and that sort of thing. So we really, a lot of the times, most women don't understand this to really know when they're doing a program, like looking at it and going, okay, well, this probably isn't so effective because it doesn't include progressive overload and the fact that my body is adapting to the stress that I'm putting on it, right? So if you did, 5 kilos for 12 reps for, a year, you probably aren't going to get too far, right? Because your body's just adapted to it, yeah? So who really gets that? Like, who can kind of understand and relate to what I mean? Or do you want me to explain that perhaps in a different way or a better way? But hopefully that makes sense. All right, so I just want to show you the stress recovery adaptation cycle, okay? So basically, we've got our stress, like I said, that's the training, that's the lifting of the weights, right? Then you've got your recovery. So that includes not just like, rest, but it includes like the amount of like protein, or I shouldn't say just protein, but obviously protein helps to repair our muscles. So we do need to make sure we're getting protein, but that would mean a good balance of all the macronutrients, right? Like we spoke about yesterday, a good balance of protein, carbs, and fats, okay? Because carbs are important for recovery as well, so is fat. So that's like the amount of sleep that you're getting, and yeah, the amount of calories that you're getting from those macros. And then over here, so adaptation. So we obviously get stronger, and that's how we build muscle, right? So who can really see that relationship between stress, recovery, and adaptation, right? Melissa says sort of, yeah, cool. Abby's happy with that, cool. So just see how you go with it as we go through, Melissa, but I think it will make more sense as we kind of go through, okay? So basically, when we go to the gym, your body, like, so you lift the weights, obviously, like, your body has stress, right? So I would explain that stress as like, you're tearing muscle fibers, right? Like, you're breaking muscle down when you're putting that muscle under stress or tension, right? So your body then recovers from that stress, okay, and it recovers by rest, protein, sleep, calories, so your muscle fibers kind of repair. And then what happens is you create an adaptation to be able to withstand the stress next time. So like, you know how sometimes, you know, you'll start with using say 5 kilos, but then you obviously get stronger because your muscles adapt to that 5 kilos. So it's like you then, we call that adapting, right, to that stress. So which means like, every single time that you go to the gym and you apply the exact same stress, so the exact same weight, so 5 kilos for 12 reps, your body doesn't have any reason to adapt, does it? Like you get into this cycle of staying stuck because, you know, you're not putting more and more stress on your body. It's just getting the same amount of stress, if that makes sense. So hopefully that helped you a little bit. So, yeah, I see again a lot of that, you know, when women are doing like fitness classes, like I sort of taught, you know, fitness classes, like group classes for a long time. And again, they're great. Like I love, you know, teaching them and have women, you know, show up and do them. But a lot of the times, you know, it was like, okay, cool, so this is the classes that you're doing. Now we need to look at, you know, if you aren't getting the result that you want, looking at, you know, doing something else in the gym that is going to have that better form of like progressive overload. Okay, so they were just coming in, doing body pump, you know, using the same weight on the barbell, doing the same amount of reps, you know, hundreds and hundreds of reps. Day in, day out, or week in, week out, but their body just gets used to that, right? So there's no reason why the muscle has to adapt to that when it's like the same thing, right? So like, yes, you are going to get fit, you are going to get healthy, but in terms of body composition changes and losing that fat, gaining that muscle, it's not going to be effective. Okay, so hopefully, Melissa, did that make sense? Rosie, yeah, so let me have a look here. The more exercise you do, the more, yeah, so it's not so much bad, it's probably more so like the recovery from that. So if you're consistently raising cortisol and you're not getting that like downtime, that recovery time, that would be bad. Although, you know, obviously we have to raise our cortisol levels to some degree when we are putting that stress in our body. So it probably comes back here to that like recovery, right? Making sure, yeah, you are getting the right amount of rest. And yeah, Melissa says, what is sleep with 4 little kids? I totally get that. So that's where you have to be really, really, I guess, what would the word be? Not wary, but really aware of that, okay, of making sure like, yeah, maybe I do need to, you know, catch a nap in between, you know, the kids having a sleep, or maybe, you know, then at daycare or whatever it might be, right? So yeah, and the more exercise you do, yeah, your body will produce cortisol. So again, like, yeah, if you're going for like long runs and you're doing lots and lots of stuff like that, then yes, your body is going to produce cortisol, which, you know, you may potentially not be having that recovery. And that's what we'll get into in a little bit as well. So cool. So yeah, glad that helped. But I'm totally feeling you with the 4 little kitties, Melissa. But yeah, you're obviously got your hands full there. But yeah, it's really just about being aware of just like, yeah, am I getting that good recovery, that good rest, even though your sleep might be broken? What are some other strategies that I could potentially use to make sure that that's happening? Okay, so how to progressively overload. Okay, so the concept is you're trying to increase the stress on your body over time. Okay, so it's not just lifting your 5 kilos for 12 reps forever. You're actually trying to increase the stress. Okay, so how does that actually happen? What does that actually look like? Okay, so there's a lot of ways that we can do that. Now, when I say this, so this is going to sound contradictory. So it says like I've said, you know, don't do the same thing, like don't lift that same weight, but you have to be doing the same thing. Okay, so let me just explain that to you so that you want to be doing the same thing so that you can improve or get better. Okay, so in order to like quantify that stress, in order to kind of really keep that stress increasing, you've got to be doing the same things in terms of like, you know, say like a squat, for example. You know, like if you're squatting, you know, 20 kilos for 12 reps, you don't want to then just go and like change and go do something else. You want to go, all right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to progressively overload, and I'm going to do, you know, it might be like even 25 or 30 kilos. So I'm increasing that stress by increasing the weight. Or I might still keep the 20 kilos, but I'm doing more reps, right? So it's like you have to do the same thing in terms of like the exercise that you're doing, rather than like changing it up all the time. And this is why, you know, you see people just doing all this random stuff, like, you know, they've got, you know, picking just these random workouts off YouTube. And it's like, how can you actually ever improve and progressively overload if you're actually not doing the same thing? So, for me, I pretty much do the same basic exercises in the gym, and obviously I change it up so it's not like boring. Like, I'm not saying that that's the thing, but what I could squat 5 years ago is a lot less than what I can squat now, right? So over time I've just put more stress on my body so that eventually like you get stronger, right? So how can we actually do that, right? So it's like increasing the reps. Okay, so that's one way that you could progressively overload. So like, this training block, and I say training block, I usually break it down into about 4 weeks, right? So I recommend like changing your training program every 4 weeks so that you can account for this progressive overload. Okay, so if you did like a 4-week block, it doesn't have to be 4 weeks, it could be 6 weeks, but just having some sort of time frame to know, okay, it's time to change and put that progressive overload. Okay, so you can either increase reps. So you might have been doing like 8 to 10 reps. Now you're doing, 15 to 20 reps. Okay, don't be afraid of reps either. Sometimes I'll do up to 30 or 40 reps, right? And that becomes my like progressive overload, but I'm not doing that all the time. Okay. You can look at increasing sets. So sets is like, you might do 3 sets of 12 reps, but then you might go and do 5 sets of 12 reps. So even though you're doing the same amount of reps, you've increased the sets, right? So you're increasing the volume of the actual exercise that you're doing. You can increase the weight. So you can go from 20 kilos to 30 kilos. That's an easy way to progressive overload. You can decrease your rest time. You can go from 60 seconds or a minute rest to 45 seconds, right? So that's just decreasing the time that your body has to recover. So that's a good way to progressively overload. Or increase your time under tension. So that's basically like the tempo that you're doing your movement at. So like if you were doing a squat, rather than going, down and up for like, counting for 2 and 2 up or something like that, you can maybe go count down for 5 seconds, pause for a second or 2 at the bottom and come up for 5 seconds. So you're increasing the time that your body is actually under tension, if that makes sense. Okay. So who's with me so far? Let me just check. Same contest 3 times a week. Kids work for not necessarily oxygen depletion, not so much as metabolism, right? And metabolism has a lot to do with the muscle density that you have, the muscle mass that you have in comparison to like the body fat, right? So yeah, definitely. Cool. So progressive overload. All right. So number 3. This is a big one. And this is probably going to cover a little bit what you were talking about, Kerry. So we've seen number 1, we've seen number 2, the progressive overload, which brings us to the right amount of cardio. This is where I used to get so caught up. I just thought it was like cardio. I just want to be skinny, and I've got to do lots of work and lose all this weight. And it just like, I was so obsessed with it, right? To the point where I'd be like, I'd be running and walking, and then I'd go for a swim at lunchtime, and it was just like, it was a bit crazy, right? So, but like I showed you in that graph earlier, or that little table earlier, it's like, you've got to have the ideal environment, right, for cardio. So for me, I've gone through long periods where I haven't done hardly any cardio at all. At the moment, really the only cardio I do is I go for a walk every morning. We go, like 4:30 in the morning, I get up, we go for a walk, and I just do it because I love it. I go with my friend, we chat the whole time that we're gone, and it's my way of like socializing, right? I walk my dog, he fully drags me pretty much. He's a blue heeler, so he loves to walk. And for me, it's not so much, I know that I'm not doing cardio purely because I want to lose weight or I want to look a certain way. For me, doing cardio is enjoyment. It's getting outside. It's beneficial. It's socializing. It's walking my dog, right? So for me, my cardio is not anything based on body composition. Like, yes, I'm burning calories and whatever, but I'm not doing it going, I'm walking and this is my cardio for the fact of, I want to lose weight, right? That's not my number one goal. Okay. I get that my body composition changes happen or are sustained, I should say, because for me, I'm not really looking to, to build any more muscle or lose any more fat. Like I'm just kind of sustaining like how I look right now, right? But I know that important part is in the gym with progressive overload, okay? So it's not anything to do with, the cardio or the walking that I'm doing, right? Oh, and I play touch football on a Monday night. And again, that's for me is not like I'm going to go run around and burn all these calories so I can lose fat and look good. It's, my whole family plays. I've got my husband and one of my sons doesn't play, but the other two play. And it's like this fun thing that we do on a Monday night where we all get to, run around on the football field and, laugh and catch up with people. And it's just like, again, like a bit of a social outing, right? So again, I really don't want you to think like, you shouldn't be doing any cardio at all, but I just want you to get where cardio fits into your lifestyle and the way that you see cardio as a tool, rather than this is the only way that I'm going to get to my body goal. Okay, so let me know if that makes sense. Hopefully, yeah. So I think we go for about an hour. We walk to the beach. So that probably takes us about an hour. Yeah, and it's again, I probably started that maybe 6 months ago. Another friend of mine, she was like, let's go walking. And I was like, yeah, she's actually was trying to join the ambulance. And she was actually, I've got to get fit and, I've got to pass all these tests. I was like, yeah. And so obviously we went walking and then I wrote her a program. She got into the gym and we kind of have just kept it up. So there was 3 of us at one stage and now she's pulled out because she's actually passed her ambulance thing that she was doing. So yeah, so it's a real social thing for me. Which is great. And I love getting up that early in the morning just to, to go for my walk. I'm usually home by, 6:15 of the morning. I can pack the kids' lunches. I can, have my coffee and do my thing. So, yeah, so it's good. All right. So what we want to do here. So it's like the right amount of cardio. Okay. So it's really, again, looking at, if you're wanting to optimize, losing fat, or or muscle gain, like it's kind of is the opposite, right? So if your idea is like, I want to build muscle, it's like if you're going to be doing like all this crazy cardio and doing all this stuff, that's not going to be optimized to you actually building muscle, right? Whereas if you're optimized to like, yeah, I want to lose fat, then doing some walking, and I recommend walking over running, honestly, because it like you spoke about before, Kerry, like raising those cortisol levels, it's much more effective and it's a lot less stress on the body as well. Not to say that like if you love running, like I've had clients that I've worked with and, they love running and they're like, I don't want to give it up. It's good for my headspace. That's my thing. It's like, yeah, cool. But they're still putting that weight training aspect into their training and making sure that they are having that adequate rest and recovery time as well. Okay. So, it's really looking at, the balance of cardio is like split based on your priority, whether it's like fat loss, muscle building. Your body type can also matter, depending on, how much cardio that you do. But I'm not going to get into a lot of that, but it can have some sort of, I guess, effect on that. And, it's not, cardio shouldn't be like a general recommendation of going like, you need to do, I mean, I get the whole 10,000 steps a day thing, but for some people, like that's just not doable, right? So it shouldn't be like a general, like, you have to do like an hour cardio a day. Just because you've heard me say I go for a walk every day, I don't want you to think that that's what you have to do, right? So it has to be figuring out what works for you and I guess customizing that cardio for you specifically as well, right? Because again, it's important to understand that, and I'll talk about this in the next couple of slides. Sometimes we think that, doing more is better, right? So, and that's definitely not the case, okay? So it's really just looking at, customizing, your cardio based on, those variables of what you are trying to achieve. Okay, so ingredient number 4, reps. So repetitions again, so that's, 8 or 12 repetitions, and exercise selection, okay? So this is a really important ingredient as well. If you're looking at, building muscle, doing that sort of weight training, it's really just figuring out, what sort of, repetitions that you're doing, right? And obviously too, the tools that you use when it comes into this, like what sort of equipment that you're using, okay? So one of the things, and this is like, and again, not saying bands are bad, like I use bands like for stretching, warming up, glute activation, that type of thing. But there's kind of this trend where you just see all of these girls on Instagram using like booty bands. I'm like, this is not what we should be doing, right? Again, not saying that they can't have a place in our training schedule, but a lot of the times they're not being used in the most effective way. So like, yes, bands are useful for like, endurance, right, or muscle activation, not so much for progressive overload. So if like you're trying to, you know, get to that goal of like losing body fat, you know, if you're just doing that, say with bands, and again, not to say that, you know, if you're at home and using bands and that's all you've got for a short amount of time, if you're like, you know, in isolation and in lockdown or whatever, like I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but over time, it's very difficult to have that progressive overload when you're just using bands, right? Because it's not like you can just be like, I'm going to go and increase the weight on that band. Like you can maybe to some degree, but you know, it depends on like that band gets stretched, or you know, it's just not the most optimal way to do it. Okay, so yeah, bands do have their place, but I just really want you to understand, like if you're doing something like, you know, like you could be using weights in the gym, but you're, you know, over there using bands, thinking that that's like the best way to get results. You might just want to rethink, you know, that. Okay, so dumbbells, they are fantastic for isolated movements. So when I say isolated movements, that's more so just isolating one muscle, right? So like a bicep curl is like an isolated movement because you're just working your bicep, right? Or a tricep kickback is like an isolated movement because you're just using your tricep. Whereas like a compound movement, you can, you know, that you can use them. So like if you were to hold a dumbbell in front of you and do like a squat, that's what we call a compound movement, because obviously you're using a lot more muscles than just one. You know, you're using your glutes and your legs and your core to some degree if you're activating that correctly. So dumbbells are great for that. And barbells are perfect for compound movements. Okay, so things like your squats, again, compound movements using more than one muscle group. So squats, deadlifts are great. They're, you know, using your back, your core, your legs, your glutes. So you're getting more bang for your buck with those types of exercises because they do utilize so many muscle groups. And same with bench press, right? So you're using your chest, your arms, your core. So I really, you know, when I'm doing my own programming, that's what I base my workouts around, is like, you know, the squats, the deadlifts, the bench press, and then all of the other work, you know, exercises that kind of work around those. Okay. So we really, you know, dumbbells are great for those isolation exercises. Not to say you can't use them for compound movements. Some ladies that we work with just train at home and they've just got their dumbbells, and that's completely okay, but they use them for, yeah, the compound movements as well. They're doing like dumbbell deadlifts or, you know, dumbbell chest press or whatever it might be, right? So it's really important to understand that you've got to have a really good rep selection and a really good exercise selection as well. And they're just some of the tools that you can use for those exercise selections. So the repetition ranges, and that's a little bit what I spoke about before, right? So, you know, your muscle endurance, that's kind of looking at that sort of 13 plus reps, okay? Hypertrophy, that's looking at sort of that 6 to 12 reps. So that's a good sort of, I guess, muscle growth range. And then strength is obviously the lower reps, like, you know, 1 to 5. So like if you know, obviously the weights would go down here. So like if you're going higher reps, you're using a lower weight, right? And, you know, you're increasing the weight as you come down the scale. So a lot of the times, you know, we have to really incorporate these 3 phases into our programming to really, you know, again, if we were just stuck in this medium rep range forever, and our body wasn't adapting, it wasn't, you know, it was adapting to that stress, and it wasn't actually having to, like, I guess, think about it as it, like we did in, I think it was day 2, when it was like we stepped outside of our comfort zone, right? Think of that as your muscle, right? So the muscle kind of has to be pushed outside of its comfort zone to be able to grow and to be able to really have that extra, like, stress to be able to have on it, if that makes sense. So yeah, so that's kind of the repetition ranges and what we kind of work in. But again, it's like looking at, okay, well, what is the goal that I'm, you know, that I've got at the moment? And that's why, like I said before, like breaking it down into like training blocks, you might be like, right, this training block, this set of 4 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it is, might be just focused on strength, right? Because last month was focused on, you know, that sort of 6 to 12 rep range. This time we're going to focus on strength. Then the next training phase, it might be like, right, we're back to sort of more muscle endurance, right? So you're always putting that progression of that overload on that muscle, okay? So hopefully, so yeah, stomach fat, yeah, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but this is really a great one, okay? So stomach fat isn't, you know, people think it's like, I'll do 1,000 sit-ups and I'm going to lose stomach fat. Definitely not the case. So your abs, right, or your stomach or your core is developed in the gym and with your training but it's uncovered in the kitchen, right? So it has to be, you know, your core is like a muscle group, right, that you have to work. But we forget that when you're doing squats, deadlifts, bench press, if we're doing it properly, that's all I do. Like, I haven't done sit-ups for years. I don't know when the last time I did a crunch was, right? But I have a six-pack, right? Purely because when I'm training, my weight training, like it's strengthening everything, right? It's like it's using those muscles. We need to keep that core strong by bracing when we're squatting or deadlifting, right? So it's like we strengthen the core in the gym, and then we uncover what's underneath that, right? Stripping back those layers when we're losing body fat in the kitchen. So people say, oh, abs are made in the kitchen. No, they're not. They're uncovered in the kitchen, right? So that's how we find those, you know, those abs, or we lose that stomach fat. So it's having that fine line of, you know, nutrition and calorie deficit with strengthening with weight training, and kind of having those two combined. Cool. Yeah, totally get it. Yeah, absolutely. With a friend working out, exactly, Abby, like just having that as like your kind of mental, like this is, you know, my time with my friend, and you know, having that social conversation, because I sit in my office and work all day. I don't really see people, especially when my kids aren't playing sport. So for me, that's really important to actually like go out and kind of see people, and, you know, have that sort of social interaction. So that's why I enjoy it so much. All right, so adequate recovery, ingredient number 5. So yeah, you don't get strong from lifting weights. Okay, so this is really important. You don't build muscle by lifting weights. You get strong from adapting to lifting weights. So that's what I was saying before, like using that progressive load. And how you adapt is by recovery. Okay, so you have to recover from the stress that you're putting on the muscle. And I really want you to understand that more isn't better. Okay, more isn't better. Like, who's had the idea that you have to do more cardio, more training, more exercise, more, and that's just going to get you to your goal, and that's better? Who's kind of fell into that trap before? And now I have iced coffee again. It's actually pretty good. All right, so adapting by recovery. Okay, this is a really, really big one. So what I want you to really just think about, how much stress is your body under outside the gym? Okay, so recognizing like what is that gap, right? So emotional stress, you know, maybe you've got stuff going on right now, like with homeschooling and lockdowns and all that kind of stuff, perhaps, you know, business and work and stuff. That's stress, right? Perhaps it's like, yeah, you've got little kids at home and you're not getting much sleep. That's stress. Okay, so think about, like, you know, what sort of stress is your body under outside of the gym? And we all have our own unique, I guess, thresholds for how we deal with stress and how much stress that we can have on the body, right? So what we really want to look at here is, you know, finding that sweet spot of what amount of stress is the right amount of stress. Okay, so it's obviously depending on, yeah, how much stress you put on your body in the gym, but also outside the gym as well, how much stress your body can actually take, right? So if you're going through a really stressful time and you've got all this stuff going on, you know, training is going to be putting more stress on your body, and it's going to be really hindering the way that you're going to be seeing results, right? So it's really just looking at, okay, well, how much rest do you need? And again, you know, people can be different with that. For me, I probably average, I would say 3, but I won't, because there's very rarely a week where I'll get to the gym 3 times. Probably some weeks I might get 3 days, some weeks it's only 2, right? And I can get away with that because I've kind of built this really good foundation where it's like I don't have to do a lot of work to maintain what I've got. And that's kind of where I want, you know, most women to get to in their journey, right? To the point where it's like, yeah, it's really easy. You know, you can eat good food like we spoke about yesterday, enjoy it, go to the gym a couple of times a week, go for a walk because you enjoy it and, you know, you love to do it. And it's like, that's the lifestyle, right? So everyone's going to be really, really different with this. So it's really about finding that sweet spot of what that right amount of stress is. So if you're putting a lot of stress on your body when it comes to training and sort of thinking more is better, think about some of these symptoms that you possibly may have in the past or possibly even are now experiencing. Okay, so some of these symptoms, like injuries, like if you're getting like a niggling sort of injury somewhere, excessive fatigue, like you're really, really tired, like you just don't have much energy. irritability, like you're just agitated, you plateau in performance, or that it even declines. So like you go into the gym, you're like, I just feel a lot weaker. I can't actually lift as heavy as what I used to, or I can't do as many reps or whatever it might be. You're feeling like beat up during your next workout. So it's like, oh, you know, it's just, I don't feel like I'm, you know, have the energy to do this. Really muscle sore. And obviously when you're starting out too, like muscle soreness is something that you probably will experience. But if you've sort of been trained for a while and you're like, I just feel like I'm really sore, could be a symptom or a sign that you're overtraining. You're not sleeping well, and you just can't train at previous levels. So you're like, oh, you know, I should be lifting, you know, 50 kilos on, you know, my squat or whatever it is, right? But I just feel like I need to drop it back. I just don't feel like I could be at that previous level. So it's really just about remembering more is not better, better is better. So if you've got a better structure to what you're doing and you're including all of these ingredients, then that's better, right? It's not more and doing more, that's better. I really just want you to get out of that mindset of like you just have to do more of it and that's going to get you to your goals. That's definitely not the case, okay? So yeah, I just want to wrap it up with that. So the 5 vital ingredients. So it's really about training, right? Rather than just doing workouts, you know, just sort of randomly like doing, and again, not to say that when I say workout, like to me, exercise, like walking, you know, that's great. But you've also got that training, you know, because your goal is to really get strong, burn that muscle, build that muscle, burn that fat, then, you know, you're having that structure to your plan, okay? And then looking at, you know, what I'm doing, does it implement progressive overload? Or have I just been going, you know, into my training, into the gym, lifting the same weights, you know, the same reps, you know, doing the same thing for, you know, for years, right? Or it could even be 6 months, right? Whatever it might be. So looking at the right amount of cardio, for your goals, right? So again, like if you're doing lots and lots of cardio and then your calories are really, really low, that just creates a whole different set of issues in terms of metabolic issues and, you know, obviously tiredness, energy levels, all that sort of thing. So it's about really finding that sweet spot of, yeah, the right amount of cardio, the right amount of macronutrients and calories to be able to support your goal. So looking at the reps and exercise selection based on what your goals actually are. And obviously, you know, taking, you know, that into account as well. And are you getting adequate recovery? Because again, the results don't come from the actual in the gym training. It comes from that adequate recovery. You know, that's when we have that muscle growth. That's when we have that repair, is when we're actually recovering. So do not discount how important it is to have a rest day. You know, you hear people say, oh, you know, no rest days, or I'll rest when I'm dead and all this sort of stuff. Like, no, that shouldn't be what people are spruiking, right? It's just not about that. It's like you need to have that recovery in order to allow your body to rest, repair, and do what it needs to do, okay? So, yeah, so that's really it. So, hang on. Let me just, I don't know what I did there. Press the wrong button. Cool. So who's still with me? Who is still here? Who kind of gets where I'm coming from? And so in today's task, what I want you to do, like I said, is go through and have a look at some of the things that you have done in the past in terms of training, what sort of things you've done in terms of your exercise. And then look at, you know, what are some of those beliefs? You know, for some of you, it might be, yeah, cardio is better, or, you know, I have to train every day, or I've got to be doing something every day, right? And just start to have a little bit of a think about what I've explained today, and perhaps, you know, why maybe, you know, you haven't seen results so far, right? Because, okay, maybe, yeah, I did sort of incorporate cardio, but maybe I didn't have the right sort of, you know, training plan that had that progressive overload, or maybe I did, but maybe I haven't been resting enough. Like, you know, I'm training in the gym, doing weights, you know, 6 days a week, and I'm not having that adequate rest. So you can start to really see the correlation of the results that you wanted, especially with, you know, with training and nutrition, when we kind of blend them all together. And I think that was a great question that you asked, Melissa, with regards to, yeah, the stomach fat. And I think this is a lot of, it's a great thing to understand. Like, yeah, a lot of the times when we're training correctly, that should be taken into account, you know, training, strengthening the core. And then, you know, that fat loss that we want to see, that comes down to having that nutrition, you know, on point as well, customized to you, and you're enjoying it. And that just comes down to, yeah, so it's like you build your core strength and I guess the, you know, that stomach area in the gym, and we uncover it in the kitchen. So like, we don't really, yeah, like the abs are made in the kitchen. I would adjust that a little bit and say abs are uncovered, or your stomach is uncovered in the kitchen, right? So it's really about having all of these things in line, the training, the nutrition, obviously the mindset, right? Because again, like I said, if you're coming into this with a, not believing that you can succeed, or this, this really negative mindset of like all these beliefs that are kind of swimming around in your awareness, then no matter, what the plan looks like, whether that's the training plan or the nutrition, plan that you've done yourself, if you can't stick to that, or if you have a struggle to be able to actually, execute on that, then obviously we need to look at that as well, right? So I'm hoping now that this is all kind of starting to come together for you. So, so let me know what you've gotten out of today. Let me know if you have any questions with that. But yeah, I just want to say again, just want to celebrate you for all just being here, for turning up, to really just, playing all out and making sure that you are, turning up for yourselves and really taking this time to really just learn and understand and just obviously get the results that you want to see. So I'm so proud of you. I'm loving having you all here. So thanks again. And I will see you all tomorrow for day number 5, which is results. Okay, so I want to really just, I guess, tie all of this together, just to sort of, I guess, go through, what is that next step of being like, right, this is all great to know, but what do I actually do with this information to make sure that this is something that I can, take this knowledge and take action and execute on it. Awesome. So have a great day, ladies. Thanks again for joining, and I will see you all tomorrow. Cheers.